Hello and welcome to another episode of the Best You interview series. It's Gary here again. Thank you very, very much, as always, for taking the time to tune in to this episode. And today I'm delighted to be joined by founder of Integrated Hospitality Consulting, Jody Jacobson, who is here to talk about her journey to entrepreneurship while serving the hospitality industry, where she has worked for over 20 years. Jody specialises in driving financial excellence and optimising business performance for companies in the hospitality industry directly. She does this with a strong focus on providing clear direction, a strategic vision, and helping organisations maximise profitability and streamline their operations. As a consultant, Jody partners with CFOs and finance leaders to deliver solutions that empower high-level strategic planning and effective financial reporting. And if people aren't into financial reporting, it's quite important, and please believe me, when we get to the conversation, it's going to be very, very interesting. Integrated Hospitality Consulting also provides consultation during system implementation to ensure smooth transitions and prevent additional costs or scope creep, something very close to my heart as a recovering project manager. And to do this, Jody works closely with the clients to set up the integrations, facilitate data mapping, and manage data migration, ensuring seamless adoption of new systems such as accounting, procurement, property management systems, point of sale, and revenue management. And here's a wee bit of a fun tidbit. Jody and I met very recently at the North American Ranger Supporters Association convention, and we just kind of happened to meet each other randomly on the Wednesday night, and then seen each other through each of the days. And it was almost a little bit of a fluke, because on the Wednesday night, when I found out a bit more about what Jody was doing, I thought that would be a brilliant conversation for the podcast. And I think there was interest the first time we talked about it. And then as the convention goes and it gets busy, I have a somewhat prominent role in the convention organising. Sometimes you can say that and then you don't get the opportunity to follow through. And then on the final day, almost as I was leaving, actually, I caught my eye on Jody and I thought, you know what, I'm going to just give her my business card right now so that we do not let this opportunity slip. And it was brilliant to meet you, of course, and brilliant to get this opportunity. Jody, thank you very, very much for coming on the show today.
Yeah, and thank you for having me. And it was a really interesting meeting. So, and the first time we started talking, and I was like, oh, we have a lot of things in common, just in what we do in the consulting and things like that. So, yeah, I'm really happy that we made this happen.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
So I did mention that you've been in the hospitality industry for quite some time. As I always like to do in the beginning, is just to get a wee bit of an understanding of your background, specifically how that led itself to the work you're doing now in the consulting space.
Yeah. So I've been in hospitality for a little over 20 years. My first 10 years was spent with a company called Great Wolf. I worked at the corporate office, started as a staff accountant, quickly realized that I like accounting, but it's not something I want to do. I really liked the finance part and the talking to people and the business relationships. So I moved into an analyst role, worked, and then eventually into operations, where I worked really closely with the properties as we rolled out an analytics system, worked closely with the properties, the VPs, and then worked my way up and eventually ended back in finance as the corporate director of finance. So, and we installed multiple systems, accounting systems, and that's really what I liked doing, along with helping, just understand what levers do we pull to be more profitable. And when I started, we had 4 properties, and when I left, we had 15. So it was just a great group of people. I learned a ton, but then I ended up moving into the implementation space for a specific hospitality. They implemented just for hospitality. So for hotels, accounting, analytics, and then doing integrations. So I was there for 10 years, worked my way from just somebody who implemented up to director of operations. And when I left, ultimately was the director of client relations. So had left in in October, and didn't really know what I was going to do. Although like the last few years, I've been just seeing there's a like a resource drain on the hotel side. After COVID, a lot of good people, especially in accounting and finance, left the industry. And so you're going in and you're doing these implementations, and you have people who are trying to do their day jobs, but then have another full-time like project management job. And you'd end up like spending more money, scope creep. And I was like, well, I like to help hotels. I want to get back to the hotel side. So I'm going to start a company that actually does this and get off the vendor side. So, yeah.
It's such a fascinating story towards entrepreneurship, where like you genuinely know the industry, you've had multiple roles within the industry, and then you see this need that's being
Mhm.
unmet through a variety of circumstances, COVID being one of them. And then you have that opportunity to go in and say, with facts and data, you can do it this way if you like, or you could hire someone like me in my organization and we can give you this experience, which equates to these savings, which equates to this more, this better degree of certainty, I guess I should probably say. And that's, I would imagine from any sort of client relationship, that would be something that would be quite palatable, quite attractive.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, it's a hard sell at times to be a consultant because,
Yeah.
you're paying a price, and it's like, well, why would I pay this? Well, and then to explain, well, you pay this to me and then you save this on the implementation side.
Yeah.
Or, when we're talking about contracts with vendors, you're able to save money. So really, my like we pay for ourselves, or people that
Yeah.
do what I do. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So
And then some.
yes, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
exactly. So we had a really fascinating conversation as we were preparing for this interview today, where we were talking about some of the greatest influencers in terms of
yeah,
leadership in your career thus far. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
yeah. So, so I've been doing a lot, like being very, especially since we talked, very spect in leadership. Leadership is very important to me. The type of leader I want to be, but thinking about the leaders in my life and who's had the most influence on me is a lot of they were all male leaders,
Right.
except for one, which or two, which I'll speak about. But I've always felt encouraged and like pushed or taught more by the male leaders. Like they were very like helpful and encouraging. Where sometimes when I had female leadership, it felt more like they weren't they weren't as helpful. They
Right.
weren't as like, well, this is how you can do it, or willing to share knowledge.
Yeah.
Which, the more I talk to other women, it seems to be a very common thing,
Right.
where instead of encouraging each other, they're tearing each other down.
Yeah.
No, just I've been really lucky recently. I found a couple groups of women that just cheer each other on and share stories, share, this is what you can do to be more successful. These are people you should reach out to. So I think it's shifting, but definitely like when looking back 20 years prior to, the last, let's say 6 months, it definitely more male leadership that was influencing me in the leader, and helping me grow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fascinating, because sometimes I imagine it would be circumstantial. It's the almost, if I could say, the luck of the draw
Yeah.
when you hit an organization, the people who are in the organization are the people who are in the organization, and then you work with them going forward. Because I've talked to many other people whose experience has been different. It's been almost the opposite of that, to say I've been so championed, I've been so supported, I've been so encouraged by females in my career. So I thought that was
Yeah.
certainly something to look forward to. In terms of, do you think it was organization specific? Do you think there was something to do with the industry or the timeline or the geography, or was there any pattern that you've noticed?
So I think it might have been to do with the industry, and especially when you're in like the finance tech area, because it is so male dominated,
Yeah,
that you can see like people or women have had to like fight
yeah,
at points to get higher up, and then they're just conditioned that, okay, like, to have an adversarial not attitude, but outlook on things. So
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's certainly an industry. I'm not an industry. Well, yes, an industry. I'll talk about that in a second. But an area of industry that I'm familiar with. I spent probably about 5 or 6 years with a utility company here in Calgary doing the type and style of implementations that you would be talking about. They were all internal, but you got to see and feel the dynamics of influence of change, of willingness to be open about, insecurities or fears around the unknown and such like that. Basic things that basic to me because I've been project managing for so long that you can anticipate how people are going to act or react in certain circumstances. But when it comes to the financial system specifically, they were so niche and so specialized that there was for me anyway, as a generalist, there was an over reliance on the resources themselves to say, the process better than anyone, and understand what the existing system does if there is an existing system in place, and you are the best positioned to be able to understand what the new system or process would look like. So I almost was giving, like, the majority of the autonomy to the resources to say, you tell
Yeah.
me, and if you give me a bum steer, then that's going to make a different dynamic of the relationship. But if you really use the power you're given for good, we're going to have a great experience. And for the majority of time, in fact, I can't think of any conflict that I had with anyone, male or female, in terms of implementations, that wasn't some emergent situation. It wasn't about the relationship per se. There was maybe just some things that had come up as well. In terms of the hospitality industry, was that something intentional for you back in the day where you thought, do you know what? I love hotels and I would just love to help hotels in any way that I can?
Like when I started 20 years ago, no, it was, I had graduated. I graduated with an accounting degree. I was getting my master's and I needed a job. So
Yeah,
I was working with a staffing agency, and they placed me at Great Wolf. And it was like, I'll do this. I was thinking I'll do this for a few years, and then I'll move on. And, I just want to work my way up the ladder, get my CPA eventually, you know, potentially be a CFO. I didn't want to go the audit route because that wasn't me. But
yeah,
then I started working, and I was like, it was the relationships and the people, and I was like, I will will always work in this industry. It
yeah,
was just like the people and the work, and it was just really fulfilling, and the
yeah,
people that I worked with were great. So it was an accident, but and actually a lot of people in hospitality are like, yeah, I got into it and I never really thought I was going to stay. But then you stay because you love the work. You don't, because it's not like one that you make a ton of money in, but you like the people and the relationships, and working with guests.
yeah,
So which
yeah,
for me, it's a different type of guest. Like, my guests are the people who are working in the hotels, but
yeah,
then when you're at the hotel, then you're working with the actual guests. And uh, I was able, when I was with Great Wolf, to go out to the properties. And I don't know if you've ever been to a Great Wolf, but they have these like these arcades. And I remember I was in Texas, and this little kid's like, oh, this is like Vegas. And like just hearing that is like, oh, like I'm a numbers person, but that's cool. So
Yeah, yeah. I
yeah.
love it. I'd mentioned earlier, I do have a bit of experience with the hospitality industry as well via the conventions that you and I met
Mhm.
at.
Yeah.
I've been involved in organising since 2013, and I've organised a lot, mostly as the sole person who would eventually be introduced to the hotel to speak to the at the beginning the sales staff to
Yeah.
say this is who we are, this is what we're looking for, these are the preferred dates, this is what the type and style of our guest structure looks like, and you know, how can we figure this out? Eventually, we do the negotiation, we sign the contract, get it transferred over to the operational folks, the event management side, and then the banqueting folks, and then the AV folks, and it's, you know, as you and I were chatting before, it made me start to realize, you know, the amount of, it's like any industry, I guess, but we're talking about the hospitality for right now, the amount of work that goes on in the background to be able to give you the experience that you get in the moment. So when I have someone who complains about the coffee maker not working in the hotel room, you know, when we've booked 750, you know, room individual room nights per night and things, and one person has that one complaint, which is material for them, and I respect, appreciate, and understand that, you know, but you know, there's that element of saying, wow, like that's the main thing you're worried about. Their job is not to worry about any of the stuff I just mentioned there. Of course, that's my job, and the team that I'm working with's job, of course, but there's lots and lots and lots that go into the background. So when you think about, you know, as I mentioned in your bio there, in terms of financial systems and point of sale and things like that, nobody cares about it till it doesn't work, till your bill isn't right, till you can't pay properly, till the person goes, I'm sorry, the system's down, and they're like, I've been traveling for 18 hours, I need to get a bed in the next 20 minutes. So it's just fascinating. I have a not that I didn't have an appreciation for it before, I just never thought about it before, Jody. And
Yeah.
then latterly, the more I've been thinking about, it's this is some machine, and some machines are more well oiled and put together than others. And I get to see that because we are agnostic in terms of the hotel chains that we go
Yeah.
to or use throughout North America here.
Yeah, it's super interesting. Like I like to say like the technology should be quiet. You shouldn't
Yeah,
even know it's there. But
yeah,
when you do know, that's when there's an issue.
yeah,
So,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So in terms of what would you say, you now go through, you work for any particular hotel chain that would need any sort of help from your organization. Life for me is about patterns. So what do you see as being the common patterns of challenges that hotel properties or hotel chains seem to be afflicted by?
So like the biggest pattern or the biggest issue that I see so I work with chains, management companies, boutique it's not having the like the resources available to assist. So
Yeah,
like uh you know we're the margin in hotels is very small.
yeah,
So you're not overstaffed. Mostly you're understaffed because you're usually looking for people. So if you're trying to keep up with the technology, which we need to for the best guest service and things like that, um, not everyone has that knowledge on staff or the bandwidth to deal with it. So you'll start implementing a system. It doesn't matter what system it is, but if you don't have that dedicated project manager or dedicated person working on the data, it just ends up going sideways. And
yeah,
something that was supposed to take 6 months can end up taking 3 years, or you just abandon it altogether. And it's such a waste of money.
yeah,
So, and it's not that people aren't trying or it's not, they don't mean to, it's not on purpose. It's just,
yeah.
there's only so many hours in a day and it can lead to burnout. So,
Yeah. And do you think that's an element of you don't know what you don't know? And they just think, I'm going to get this external company to come in, they're going to do everything for us, because sometimes salesy people can
yeah.
promise salesy things, and then you know, you come in and you say, right, listen, we need this resource from your organization, that resource, access to this person, that person, whatever that looks like. And they're saying, well, wait a minute, that's not what I thought I was signing up for. Is it along those lines?
It absolutely. So I actually was having a discussion this morning with a different consultant about the same thing, in that, like, the vendors are on the vendor side. Like, they're like, okay, this is what you can do. And there's a lot of good vendors, good partners out there, but they're not going to come in and do the hotel side of things. They're not going to tell that, hotels might go through like a huge upgrade once every 10 years, or huge change every 10 years.
Yeah.
So the likelihood that you're going to have somebody on your staff that knows everything, or is it's very slim. So the vendor is on their side, they're not directing your side. So they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah. And as you're doing, say, the sales and marketing part of your business, can you identify, is there like, in my head it's buckets where you say this property or this group or chain, they've got it going on, they know what it's like on the technology side, they have it organized, they've already got their team established on their side, so they're good. This one, they kind of understand it, but it doesn't look like they've got it staffed up properly. And the other one, they're the less or the least educated. Do you get to pinpoint that?
To a point. I mean, not until I like will get in or go in or start talking to somebody.
Right.
Because things can, especially with things can operate on a high level, or like just to the guest, fine. But until you get into like the back end and see like how long is it taking you to do your financial close,
Yeah.
things like that, you don't really know if the systems are working or if the setup is proper.
Yeah.
Or yeah. So I wish I could like identify,
Yeah.
make my marketing a lot
Yeah.
easier.
Yeah.
Um, so, but
Yeah.
the ones where it is well oiled, it is a machine, and
Yeah.
it's fun to see. So I have a warped sense of fun. So
So, in terms of one of the fascinating things for me was the commonalities between our experiences, of course, the fact that you were there supporting Rangers, which is
yeah.
obviously a big deal for me, but it was a female entrepreneur in, as you mentioned earlier, quite a male-dominated space in terms
Mhm.
of simple system implementation in any industry, actually. For that, have you seen biases? Have you experienced biases when you go and they're saying, for example, can I speak to your boss or something? And you're saying, excuse me, I am the boss. I'm looking for pitfalls and benefits of maybe approaching it as a female entrepreneur. What's been your experience thus far?
So my experience has actually been really positive. And I mean, when they're like, oh, what do you do? And I'm like, well, I own a company and we help install software. And they're like, really? It's surprising. Or it seems like they're surprised when I tell them.
Yeah,
But I've actually been really welcomed into the space.
yeah,
And, so so now I'm welcomed. The first, like, there was like a month there where I was like trying to connect with some people, and I did feel from like the older consultants that were in the space, there was a couple times where I was like, I felt like they were a little like not like resistant to help.
right.
Uh, and I don't know that if it was because I was a woman or just because I was coming into their space.
Yeah,
But I found some really, really great consultants who have been doing the consulting for, 5, 10, 15 years, who we have calls with, or I have calls with, and we bounce each other ideas off each other. We give each other different references or different referrals.
yeah,
And when I go into different hotels or different companies, I've never felt unwelcome or questioned about where like are you really in charge? I've never felt that. Like, I've always felt respected. And
yeah.
Uh, just one other point, just about like how we're talking about like the other consultants. That's something that I mean, I've only been doing this for what, 8 months, 9 months maybe, but
Yeah.
there have some consultants or people that are new to the space, and I love talking to them. I'm like this, like I just giving other people ideas,
Yeah.
because I'm not I'm not going to, like, I can't help everybody, and
Yeah.
I don't want to, because that would spread me too thin. I would lose integrity, things like that. And there's enough work in this space for good people to have work. So I'm always happy to have meetings, or take an email or take a call.
Yeah.
And that goes back to some of the leadership that I've had in my past, where they've always been willing to help me, and I just want to pay it forward.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it then becomes a natural part of you
yeah.
and your
Mhm.
being. And one thing I didn't offer up earlier in terms of your example of, the majority of them, apart from maybe one or two, being male, my experience in my career has been the opposite. It's been the majority of them were female, and there's a couple of guys in there who were absolutely standout, and everyone's good to a point, but when we're talking about the influencers, when we're talking about the people where you're thinking, I'm gonna, like, I would like to do some of that and less of that, the way that you would kind of typically model positive behavior. I've had that experience. So when I started to understand and appreciate that my experience was somewhat unique, when I met my love Erin and we were chatting, and she was telling me about inequality and such. I've talked about this a couple of times already, and I kind of I brushed it off. I'm kind of like, that's I mean, okay, but no, that's actually not the case, until she presented me with absolute evidence. And I'm thinking, wow, because my paradigm was just, there are very strong women in my household for sure as I was growing up. And then there was just a plethora, it seemed like a plethora of strong women around me, that I just thought that's the way that it is. And I had to really expand my thinking, which, as I think about it now, is kind of not my best work, obviously, but I was doing the best I had with the information I had at the time too. So in terms of, I'm thinking here, the Jody factor. You're relatively new entrepreneur. You've had enough experience in a number of roles in your life to be able to say, I think I can help. I think I can actually provide a service that's going to be of value to people, and provide, an experience that is going to be enjoyable, palatable, profitable, hopefully,
Yeah.
as you're moving forward. What is, without breaking any, confidentialities or anything, like, what's the IHC? What's the Jody factor? What do you get when you work with Jody?
So you get a high, like, you get a couple of things. So one is like high level strategic thinking, and just the ability, because I've worked in so many hotels, and I've been not lucky, that's not the right word, fortunate, to be able to be in spaces where I've done so many different things.
Yeah,
So, like, I can walk into a hotel, or a system, and look at what the org chart is, look at the systems they're using, sit down and talk to people, and come away after a few days and say, okay, these are the updates that you need to make, and then this is where you're going to get to
yeah,
if you follow this path. And then, like, so the strategic high level, the thinking, or ideas, and then really putting the plan into motion,
yeah,
and holding the project accountable, and keeping it moving, with my team. So, I work with 7 different people who I've known them for, I think one of them, the least I've known them is like 7 years.
yeah,
So I know that they're good, and I know, that if it's not me specifically driving the project, I still know, that it's going to get done,
yeah,
and done well. So, and
yeah,
just integrity, just making sure that what we say we're going to do is what we do.
Yeah. And if something, invariably,
Yeah.
which it will, if something goes wrong, I've always said in my project management life, if something goes wrong, I don't want people throwing their hands up and saying,
Mhm.
here we go again. I want them to
Yeah.
say, this is quite unusual. Let's go find out what
Yeah.
happened.
Mhm. And
You know,
yeah, let's find out what happened and take ownership for it.
yeah,
As much as we plan and as much as we have an idea of how to move forward, there's always something,
of course.
especially when you're talking like huge projects, but just taking ownership, taking a step back and saying, okay, what do we need to do to move it forward? And
Yeah,
but learn from that mistake.
yeah,
So
absolutely. Absolutely. You mentioned earlier lucky or fortunate, and I know you
yeah.
were kind of wrestling with those words. You've earned the right, is the way that I would say it. You've earned the right to have the experiences you've had, to be able to impart that information, to have that confidence when you're speaking
Yeah.
to people, to have this solid network around you
Mhm.
that are talented, skilled, reliable, very,
Yeah.
very able to deliver what needs to be delivered.
Yeah. So I struggled with that because I actually was having a conversation with one of my mentors who I've known her for 20 years. She was on the vendor side when I was with Great Wolf, and she's very empowering. She like STEM for women, and we were having a conversation, and I was just explaining like where I was with my company, and she's like, "That's amazing." I said, "Yeah, I'm lucky." And she was like, "No." Like she just stopped me. And I actually posted about this on LinkedIn last week, I think. No, you're not lucky. You worked hard. You were given opportunities and you took them. So I've been trying to use words that don't like don't apologize, don't say sorry, don't use lucky, because it's something I think especially women do, which negates all the work that we've done. So
Absolutely. It's almost like a conditioned minimalizing,
yeah.
of what it is we're doing. And there's
Hmm.
nothing wrong with being a little bit subtle in your
Hmm.
communication so you're not overwhelming someone. But when it becomes a condition where you're just kind of like, oh, I'm just me,
Yeah.
that these things, I'm not destined for other things or whatever your
Yeah.
paradigm or thought process is, that's not cool.
Yeah.
You know, it's not. So, what would you say has been your best and maybe not so best experiences in your entrepreneurial journey thus far?
So the best is reconnecting with people that I haven't talked to in like 10 years.
Nice.
So uh and that they're cheering me on. I was able to reconnect with so many people who are like, "How can I help?" And I was like, I feel bad asking, and I don't even have to ask. And they're like, "No, like what do you need? Do you want to get on a call?" And just reminding me of why I love this industry so much is because there are really, really great people
Yeah.
out there. And I wish I had more time, because I would just be on the phone all day talking to them. Not just because I want to like get the information out of their brain, just because they're enjoyable people.
Yeah.
So that's been the best. The the hardest part is just the unknowing and the second guessing myself, because you're like, okay, I have this project now, but what's going to happen in a few months? Am I still going to have it? And it's just it's a roller coaster.
Yeah.
And just wondering, if am I doing a good job? Am I meeting expectations? What are other people saying about me, which is again something else that I'm trying to get away from even worrying about. But that's the worst part about it, is the unknown and the roller coaster of emotions, where you wake up on a Monday morning and you're just stressed because you're like, is is this going to be the week where I don't have any clients? So
Yeah. And I think those are natural feelings to have, and at any point in business, I assume,
yeah.
especially going from an experience where the transaction is I give you my time and expertise, and then you pay me regularly at
Mm.
this pre-agreed rate. So then I can therefore forecast what I can afford, where I'm going to go on holiday, what I'm going to invest in, whatever that looks like. And then all of a sudden you don't have that
Yeah.
predictability. But what do you have in replacement of that predictability and understanding that you're
Mhm.
more in control of your calendar than you were before, the possibility to impact other people in a more direct way than possibly you might have been able to when you're working essentially on someone else's vision, not
Yeah.
your own, and figuring those sorts of things out. So I think, I mean, it's incredibly brave to take the plunge and do what you're doing, what we're doing in the space. And I get a lot of feedback like that, where people say that's brave. And I'm thinking, oh, some days I think it was mostly stupid, but
Right?
other days I'm thinking, like, it would be a disservice not to do this, to me, to my family, to the people that I'm serving in the workplace and space at the same time.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. I think it's very brave. I think it's absolutely fabulous. I love the fact that you're taking you're not wasting, if I could use that word, the experience that you've gained. You're using it for good to say, spin the screen around, show me how you do your process. I could probably save you some time and effort and energy. Or, or like other people I've seen, they just kind of almost completely embed themselves in an organization and forget some of the
Yeah.
value that they're able to provide and such as well. So fabulous conversation. As I love to do at this point in the interview, it's called The Best You. And I like to try and ask the guests, what's one regular practice or practices that Jody employs to give her the best opportunity to be the best version of herself?
So, well, like taking like not work related. The best thing I do is just like waking up, working out, like making sure my head is clear. So because then when I move into working for the day, it's um I'm clear.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's a good start. So in business, the one practice that I feel like helps me be the best is doing, I call it, and actually a friend gave me this idea. I call it my morning paper, where I
yeah,
get, and I actually, like, I'm a big, like, writing down things. Like, I
yeah,
write down what are my top 3 goals for today.
yeah,
And those are the things that I tackle. And if I get them done first, then I move on to something else. But
yeah,
it helps me be more focused
yeah,
and know, like, okay, what am I heading into today?
yeah. And in terms of the physical writing, is that has that been tried and tested over time where on other occasions you've maybe typed it out somewhere or left yourself a voice note or something and it just hasn't landed quite as much?
Yeah, it doesn't land the same. I actually have a traveler's notebook that I carry around with me. And that's just, it's got my calendar in it. I write down my 3 things and I, look at it in the morning, look at it at the end of the day. And some days I win and some days I lose. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
absolutely brilliant. I love it. Jody, where can people find out a little bit more about you?
So LinkedIn is really like the best spot to find me.
Yeah.
Just Jody Jacobson. We also have a page, Integrated Hospitality Consulting, or we have a website. It's integratedhospitalityconsulting.com. So that's really the best place.
Wonderful. And I would attest to anyone listening or watching this, Jodie's posts on LinkedIn are terrific. It's not just about system implementations. In fact, there's very few about system implementations. It's about life, it's about leadership, it's about experience, it's about challenging yourself, it's about being introspective and such. I really do enjoy reading them each and every day. You're a very regular poster as well, which is great. I always look forward to that.
I need to post one though next time I go to Ibrox, or what next time I'm in Glasgow. Uh,
Yeah.
I'll have to post one of those. So
Definitely. And I'll absolutely love that one for sure. Jodie, thank you very, very much. Great seeing you again, great connecting with you again, and thank you very, very much for the chat today.